The southwestern counties are said to be especially rich in all that Ireland is famed for: the wild beauty of the land, deep sea bays framed by rugged coastlines, and, of course, the warm, charismatic Irish people. County Cork, situated on the southern coast of Ireland, offers these qualities in abundance. Cork City, the capital of County Cork, is now one of Ireland's major cities, second only to Dublin. In the secluded Gugan Forest Park, from a lake filled by mountain streams flows the River Lee. From there it winds its way through the county of Cork to the coast, passing through Cork City on its way. The spreading Lee that like an island fair encloseth Cork with his divided flood, were the words used by Edmund Spenser to describe Cork City. Like Venice, it's built on water, with a city centre perched on an island. The River Lee divides it in two as it passes on either side of the island to reunite beyond it. Built on reclaimed marshes, the name Cork is derived from the Irish corca, meaning marshy place. The city actually dates back to the 7th century and is said to have grown from a monastic settlement founded by St. Finbar, a religious figure whose religious establishments contained at least 700 priests, monks, and students. Cork still pays tribute to its founder, and today people can visit St. Finbar's Cathedral. Built of pale grey limestone, this stately cathedral lies on the original site of St. Finbar's monastic settlement. Spirited and fiercely independent, it's hardly surprising that many of Cork's leading political figures have been associated with Ireland's struggle for independence. One of Ireland's great heroes, Michael Collins, was born and died in West Cork. He was one of the leaders who helped win the battle for independence. However, a more moderate figure in Cork's history was Father Theobald Matthew, who formed the Cork Total Abstinence Society. Within 2 years of forming the society, he had persuaded thousands of people to abstain from drinking alcohol. I think you'll agree that this was quite an achievement when you consider just how much the Irish like to enjoy themselves. St. Anne's Shandon is one of the city's best-known landmarks. You can sometimes hear the chimes of the church bells as they echo about the bridges and quays of the city. Built in 1722, St. Anne's Shandon stands on the original site of a medieval church. A castle was also situated next to the church, but both were almost entirely devastated during the struggles between William III and James II. St. Anne's was built on the site of the old church using materials from it. The name Shandon means old fort. A dome rests on the tower, upon which is a weather vane in the form of a salmon. Measuring 11 feet, this is to herald the salmon industry on the River Lee, which flows through Cork. The salmon fishing industry is of such vital importance to Cork, it's hardly surprising that it should be honored in this way. The fishing boats dotted about the picturesque harbor remind us that Cork is still a thriving fishing community. Another piece of heritage is the Cork Examiner. Locally, it is simply referred to as the paper. but is in fact a fine piece of journalism and has been printed every day without fail since August 1841, over 150 years. The Evening Echo has had a shorter but still impressive reign, having been in production for 100 years. A statue known as the Echo Boy commemorates this. It depicts a young boy selling newspapers, calling through the dusk to passers-by to buy a copy. The town of Cork also possesses an important harbor. The harbor has a strong connection with Atlantic journeys. The very first crossing of the Atlantic by steamship left there in 1838. Looking at Cork Harbor today, it is difficult to reconcile it to its poignant history, for it was here that many of the coffin ships departed for the new world of the Americas. They were called the coffin ships because for thousands of emigrants, Cork Harbor would probably be their last sight of Ireland. The harbor was also the last stop made by the Titanic before its ill-fated journey. Another port and major town is the historic walled port of Youghal. Situated on the Blackwater estuary, Youghal developed along the river where water was readily available, and the settlement could be easily defended. Like most of Ireland, Youghal suffered from both Viking raids and later invasion by the Normans. However, by 1350, the town was a walled port, trading with ports all over Europe. Wine, salt, and spices were imported, while wool, fish, timber, and agricultural produce were exported. Today, fresh fish is still readily available, and the sight of fishermen working on the quays is not uncommon. Many outstanding restaurants are based in Cork, most specializing in the seafood that is caught just offshore. Much of the fish is from the bay and Blackwater estuary. Similarly renowned is the pub Moby Dick's. The film director John Huston chose Youghal to film his 1954 film Moby Dick, starring Gregory Peck. The pub was said to be a favorite of the director's while he was filming, dropping by occasionally for a pint. Probably Youall's best-known historical figure is Walter Raleigh, who from 1588 to 1589 was mayor of the town. Raleigh's estates were eventually bought by Sir Richard Boyle for the princely sum of £1,500. Boyle was subsequently made Earl of Cork in 1620, and a figure representing Richard Boyle can be seen in the church at Youall. Figures of both of his wives are placed on either side of him. It was, in fact, his first wife, Joan Hapsley, whose wealth enabled him to purchase and develop Raleigh's estates. Several of his 15 children are also shown in the monument. Those lying down died at birth. This monument is situated in St. Mary's Church of Ireland, a stately building with its weathered walls covered in moss. This was originally a Danish church. However, extensive damage in 1220 caused much of the old church to be destroyed, and a new one was built incorporating elements of the old church. Nonetheless, it remains one of the oldest churches still in use in Ireland. Youall's ancient wall is an object of interest to many visitors to Cork. One of the gates in the wall, the Trinity Gate, which is at the western end of the wall, was replaced with the clock tower which still stands in Youall today. Built in 1777, the clock tower was used as a prison until the mid-19th century, but soon proved itself to be too small. An extra story was added in 1795, and during the Rising of 1798, several members of the United Irish were hung from the windows of the tower. The clock bell in the tower was used as an alarm throughout the centuries and as a fire bell up until the 1950s. The little town of Kinsale is a very popular destination in Cork. A picture postcard village of Ireland, Kinsale is a very small but very seductive place. Like the rest of Cork, the sea plays an important part in the history of Kinsale. All around the village are reminders of the events of 1601. In 1601, the British had besieged a Spanish fleet anchored in the harbor nearby. The Irish army traveled the whole length of the country in order to attack the British, but they were defeated. As a result, Irish Catholics were banned from the village of Kinsale for over 100 years. A place of equal history, but considerably more fame than anywhere else in Cork, is Blarney Castle. Dating back to the 15th century, for the first 200 years of its life, Blarney would have experienced all the triumph and glory of war as any castle in Ireland. Standing by the castle's roughened walls today, there is still a sense of majesty and magic. Perhaps more so, because this is the home of the famous Blarney Stone. Legend tells us that anyone that kisses the Blarney Stone gains the gift of eloquence. The origin of this has been lost in time, but the development of the word Blarney can be traced to Elizabethan times. It was Queen Elizabeth I who initiated the use of the word. During her reign, Elizabeth tried to impose greater demands on her Irish neighbours. Cormac Tish McCarthy, the Lord of Blarney at the time, had no intention of submitting to her demands, and cleverly managed to evade the Queen by shrewd letters full of flattery professing his loyalty to her. On receiving yet another such letter, Elizabeth shouted out in rage, "This man never means what he says. This is all Blarney." Hence, Blarney slipped into the English language, first being defined as persuasive talk designed to deceive, but not to cause offense. Over the years, the definition has changed and now refers to flattering talk, a fine flow of eloquence with just a touch of good-humored exaggeration. It is indeed this power which is bestowed upon anyone who kisses the Blarney Stone. A more cynical Frenchman described it as gaining the privilege to tell lies for 7 years. On the border of the counties of Cork and Kerry lies the town of Bantry. Bantry was twice the object of unsuccessful French invasions, the second and more famous attempt taking place in 1796. A local Englishman, Richard White, alerted the English forces to the possible French attack. This, and the storms that night, prevented the attack. Richard White was rewarded for his loyalty by a peerage. His magnificent home, Bantry House, is still occupied by his descendants today. Beautifully situated, Bantry House overlooks the glassy sweep of Bantry Bay. Situated in Bantry Bay is the village of Gingariff, a popular destination for prosperous Victorians during the late 19th century. Latterly, it has gained more fame from its proximity to Garinish Island and Bantry House. The journey to Garinish Island leads you across the sultry blue of Bantry Bay. A more placid scene can barely be imagined. In the distance, hazy mountains are piled about the bay's edge, the more prominent, conical-shaped mountain being Sugarloaf Mountain, the mountain of the wild people. As the boat makes its way across the gentle waters, birds and even goats watch you pass by. Groups of seals swim around the boat or lie gleaming on the wet rocks lazily soaking up the sunshine. It's been said that language utterly fails to convey even a limited idea of the beauty of Garinish Island. This small island of only 37 acres is a place that anyone visiting Cork must not miss. As the boat approaches the shore, you will begin to glimpse what makes Garinish Island so special. And sure enough, should you stray through the rocks and forest on the fringes of the island, you will stumble upon a Mediterranean haven hidden among the trees. The island was originally purchased by Belfast-born MP Annan Bryce. He dreamed of turning the bare island into a paradise and enlisted the help of the architect Harold Peto to assist him. Peto favored the Italian style of garden, and as at the time wilder gardens were in favor, Garinish Island is a blend of the two. The centerpiece of the island is the lily pond, with its paved surroundings. Exotic plants were imported to fill the garden. With the Mediterranean-type climate and the warm waters of the Gulf Stream, these plants still flourish today. There are rare conifers, camellias, and exotic bamboos, to name but a few. The dense splashes of color from the many different types of plants lie all around the walls of the Italian temple and buildings. It's scarcely possible to believe you're in Ireland while wandering through this subtropical paradise. Garinish Island reminds us that Ireland always has the ability to surprise. You never can tell what you will find in County Cork. A remote village, an ancient ruin, or even an Italian garden may lie just around the next corner. Yet wherever you travel in Cork, you will find a mystic history and an Irish spirit that surrounds the villages and rugged countryside of this beautiful land.